So Steve Moran here. We're at the Senior Living Innovation Forum talking to Ben Lytle. And you just finished a talk that was very, very intriguing. I'd like to start with just a little bit of your background and who you are and how you got to be here.
Yeah, so my career has been as an entrepreneur, both a corporate entrepreneur and CEO of big companies, big public companies that I helped found, and then a mid-sized, smaller companies that I built with my sons, and I've also came up as a technologist. So I came up through the route of being a chief information officer and then got into general management, built my first tech company when I was 26 on the side with the blessing of the company I was working at. And probably more important for what I do today is when I was 20 years old, I was introduced to the concept very early in life of potential and what both human individual potential and the potential of humanity. And I became fascinated by it. And also, since high school, I had been involved. I loved science fiction. I'd always involved in the future, in looking at the future. And those came together. So I saw the world, and I still do, through the eyes of human potential. And it's the way I led my teams. It's the way I managed people. It's the way I look at business opportunities.
Okay, so you just headed me in a completely different direction because I'm really fascinated by this. As a boomer, when I grew up, I think it is true with most boomers, we grew up with a lot of hope. We thought the best was yet to come, that America was going to be better and better. There was going to be more prosperity for families. And that doesn't seem to be true today.
No, it's not true.
It's tremendous despair right now. What happened?
I would dispute your facts.
Okay.
The facts are that we live in the best time in history. By far the best time in history. Most of human existence was people were hungry, scared because their chances of dying. Most children died before 12. So we lose perspective. As you heard me talk this morning about part of wisdom's perspective. And the fact of the matter is it's simply not true. So we have come a long way, but one of the things we have to understand about life is it'll never be perfect. Nature is perfect in its imperfections. And so we see one hungry person and we're upset. That's a good thing, but you shouldn't judge all of humanity. You meet one jerk, and that doesn't mean everybody's jerks. And so perspective is really important for wisdom and how we look at the world.
Okay. So, but would you agree that in general, and we're talking the Western world, United States specifically, there seems to be a lot more despair or emotionally or not? No?
No, I don't. Matter of fact, if you look at, if you watch TV, you will.
Okay.
But if you look at, for example, the time that I grew up, and I'm a boomer too, I'm the first year, 1946.
Yeah, I'm right in the middle.
So if you look at the quality of life for people who are low income today, it's magnitudes better than it was. Their psychological attitudes are worse.
They're right there. Okay.
So we've got a lot of work to do. What we've lost is we don't teach history anymore. We don't give people the perspective they need to understand how far we've come and how many people sacrificed for the things we take for granted.
So
that's a fundamental failing of our education system, and it's a fundamental failing in many cases of parents, because parents need to provide perspective. And if you do, what I do is I find that most people today have an avenue out that they never did before. There's more ways to get ahead today, and particularly in other parts of the world, than ever before. I mean, we lifted 800 million people out of subsistence poverty with the internet. 800 million.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm gonna push back a little.
That's okay.
Because I think while I agree with everything you said, I think as younger people look at the world today, there's a lot more that they at least perceive that it's worse rather than better, and that the best time are behind. And I'll give you a couple of examples. When I went to college, I was fortunate my parents had enough wealth to be able to pay for board and tuition and everything, so I came out debt free. But I had a number of friends who, by working in the summertime, having a part-time job while they were at school, walked out debt free. Kids can't do that anymore. Can't even come close. I've got two 40-something kids with grandkids, and they live in Seattle, so they're living in a real high-cost area, but they don't see any hope of being able to buy a house. And so there are those kinds of things.
Well, let's talk. Okay. First of all, when I was a kid, I was a young person. My parents couldn't give me anything. Zero.
Right.
And it was very interesting because I just had a discussion with one of my grandsons who's 31 the other day, and he was saying, "Oh boy, it's really costly to have children." I said, "What do you think it was like? Do you know that my kids, your dad, never had a new toy until they were 9 years old. They're always hand-me-downs. Their clothes were hand-me-downs. And that's how we financed our way through college." But what I would tell you, I spend a lot of time with young people. And I think generalizations like that are not very appropriate, because what I find is actually a lot of young people that, yes, today it's really difficult to buy a house, but that's largely the boomers driving up the prices. And we'll get through this. These are typically short-term problems. And I find young people very optimistic.
So I really like your description of it as a short-term problem, because I do think that, we obviously have this very hostile political environment right now. But you and I are old enough to, we remember, we had a period of time.
In the 60s.
That's right, in the 60s. I mean, even in the 70s, there were all these assassinations.
It was horrible.
And the racial divide that took place in the South.
And you heard me explain that this is part of, this is what's at the root cause, because it's not just the United States problem. Every country in the world is divided, every country. And it's not even a political issue alone, because within churches have divided. They've split.
Yep.
And so what's doing that? And I explained that this is a problem. What happens is when people are fearful, they don't understand what's happening, life's changing too fast, and nobody's explaining it to them that this is a normal process. They polarize. Right. They polarize until they learn how to get back. Sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's not so ugly. And many times we've gone through divides that there was, everybody yells at each other for a while, they exhaust themselves, or a new leader comes forward, or some event comes forward that unifies people. And so if you remember, that's what really happened in the like him or not. Reagan unified a lot of people because he was a powerful, positive voice.
That's right.
Well, and the economy took off.
Yeah. And I would say, I think we've seen some other examples. I think in his own way, I think Bill Clinton did the same.
Yeah.
And I think that probably to not the same degree, but even Barack Obama did. And of course, Trump has nasty things to say about everybody, so it becomes very divisive, whether you like him or not, his policies. And so.
But one thing I would encourage you not to do, and encourage people not to do, is don't lock down. You're giving into it when you lock down to one or the other. What advances human all of us. Think about how is when you understand that there is value in both points of view. Value. I don't care whether you like the person, you don't like the point of view. If you keep endorsing only one point of view, it will never find the creative solution. That tension is called the tension of the opposites, the law of polarity. And when you hold that tension and you appreciate both points of view, you find compromise, or in our own minds, we create a creative solution. So it is key to wisdom to understand that. Study the law of polarity and how it works.
Good. Okay. So let's shift to human potential, and I've got a bunch of other questions I may get to on human potential. I'm actually I'm going to do this now because this is more personal. I don't know that it'll end up on video, but where does religion fit in all this?
So I would contrast religion to spirituality, and I'd contrast religion to spirituality to the role of the soul, because first of all, religion is a construct of human beings, and so as it is, it will have good people in it and bad people in it. It'll have good decisions and bad decisions. So, because I've talked to a lot of young people that are angry at religion, and I go, okay, wait a minute, that's a construct. So you like everything about education? No. Do you like everything about government? Of course not. Well, okay, then you're not going to like everything about religion.
That's right.
But it's different from spirituality. If you are a spiritual being, whether you like it or not, and if you don't embrace that part of yourself and what it means to you, then you're going to be a very unhappy person. And so spirituality is very different. Everyone has their own spiritual journey. If you believe in nothingness, I think you're going to I've never met a happy atheist, ever. But I've met every wise person, and I interviewed over 400 wise people, really wise people in my life, and still counting. And every one of them was spiritual. That the world, and I don't, let's say, some of them would say, I don't know what God is. I don't know how we got here or what creator is, but I know I feel something. Now, it's important to contrast that with the role of the soul. The soul, for those people who are religious, is the word of God. It's God speaking to them. And in fact, interesting little side note, do you know when this first record of the soul was?
No, I don't.
I didn't either, and I researched it. It was the 8th century BC.
Is that right?
And there was a stele, a stone tablet in which a man spoke, and he was obviously a ruler of some kind, and he spoke of the God speaking in me. Isn't that fascinating?
Right? That's cool.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Well, anyway, so it's a very old thing. But if you're an agnostic or an atheist, you can't deny the existence of the soul. You'll hear its voice. You'll hear those inspirations. And so one way to think about it, and the way I talk about it, is think of it, it is one of those psychological organs, like your ego, like your shadow, like your soul, like your conscience. And there's an evolution of how those things came into being. You need to understand its role and what it can do for you, because it will lift you, because it has one orientation. If you think of the ego is concerned with you and you only.
Yep, that's right.
The soul is concerned with the good of the whole, and it will cause you to be more sensitive to the world and doing good things in the world. So I hope I didn't overcomplicate your question, but that's really the way I think the healthiest way to look at it. Religion, sometimes you're going to like it, sometimes you're not.
Yep.
But your relationship with your spirituality should always be positive, because it'll lift you. And then the soul is paying attention to the soul and how you use it in that tension of opposites, where, I have to worry about me, but I have to worry about others too. And when you do that, that's that tension of opposites. It creates the creative solution.
Cool. So let's shift to senior living.
Okay.
So as you look at sort of the human potential, if you were advising a senior living organization about how to tap into that, maybe even I'll use the word exploit that for residents and members, what would you recommend?
I would, first of all, offer, when I was explaining, as I suggested this morning, make it a place where you say to potential residents, here, we will help you live your best life and leave a legacy to humanity that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. Now, that's a big statement, but what that means and the way it would translate is, first of all, offer classes in how to develop your potential, how to become wise, and how to share that with others, and how to give meaning in your life to become your best. What does it mean to be your best? One of the joys that I have is I know I'm at my best. I absolutely know I'm giving everything I've got every day for this message right now and to young people. But then say, that's that. Now, we would like to engage you with young people if you're interested, because you can help them. You can help them see the world through a different lens. The other is, we would like to offer you the ability to create an alter ego, an AI alter ego of yourself, and leave that for your family that you'll never see, great-great-grandchildren, so they can talk to you about life in this time. They'll learn from it. And don't worry you made mistakes. Those mistakes will be helpful to explain to them, but also to make your alter ego part of a database of hundreds of thousands, because then think about how helpful that could be to humanity.
So I
have a vision of that.
Yeah, I really,
and I think it'll become a cultural norm.
Yeah, I like this so much. My father was an emergency room physician. He passed away about 4 years ago. I was there at the hospital when he passed away. And one of the things I spent so much time so much time thinking about is, as we knew this time was closing, is and so much stuff inside his head.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just the doctoring stuff, but he was fascinated by nature, and he knew all these things, and he was so wise, and I tapped into it so long. And then at 10 o'clock at night, he took the last two breaths, and it was fun.
Yeah, and we don't have to do that anymore. And even though and it's not for everybody. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But here's the thing. Imagine how valuable, like you and I can talk about the 60s and 70s. A lot of people think it's the worst time. No, it was a lot worse in the 60s and 70s. We were killing a lot of people on both sides, people. And so, it was really scary. So they need that perspective, but also the fact that think about if your experiences could help someone, not even a family member you never knew, who said, I got this problem. Like, we test our alter egos. We say, I'm 26 years old and I came home and I think my best friend since the third grade stole money from me and I don't know what to do. And the alter ego they're talking to says, well, would you like to hear what Saint Ignatius, a very famous man, said about betrayal by a friend?
Yeah.
And you start there. And then and of course, obviously it's an actor or it's just a voice. And then it says, well, would you like to talk to some people your age who dealt with the same problem, or when they were your age, they dealt with the same problem? You see how that could work?
Yeah.
And that is a very possible. Now, imagine how that can influence decision-making in so many ways.
Yeah. And those things are so valuable. I mean, just by happenstance, I have two adult children who are both in their 40s. And just in the last couple of days, each one has called me for life advice.
Exactly.
And, at some point in time, I'll be gone and that would disappear, but it doesn't necessarily happen, right? So
yeah.
I really like that. So one of the things that Ken Dykewald talked about last evening that continues to haunt me is that we talk a lot more about both lifespan and health span.
Yeah.
And he put up this chart that showed in the United States currently, we have about 12 years on average of unhealth from the time that we live to this, and we go into this period of unhealth, and then we die. That's really startling and sobering. And frankly, I'm living it out with my stepfather right now, who's got Alzheimer's. Do we find hope within that unhealth period, or what are your thoughts? How do we make that better?
First of all, perspective again. Even though I totally agree with Ken and I totally agree with where we're at, if you go back to the length of time I've been in healthcare and been running big healthcare organizations and trying to change behavior and lifestyle, because so much of what happens to us in the U.S. is lifestyle related, and so we have to break the mold that we can change behavior. However, if you go back, there's been really real progress. I'll give you an example. I mentioned that I was was part of a company that took SilverSneakers nationwide and made it I think the largest exercise program in the United States today. One of the things that we learned in that was that you have to have, I don't particularly like the world, but an ecosystem to change people's behavior. So, for example, there's so many companies out there today that we're inventing an app. Well, you're not going to change much with an app. You have to have an app. You have to have an authoritative figure like a doctor who endorses this and says, yes, this works, that they believe in. You have to then have a coach, a personal, it doesn't have to be a personal coach, but at least a team coach that works with you to help you get there. And then you need community. You need people like me who I see changing, and I'll change with them. That's what makes SilverSneakers work.
Right.
And so we tried to, in our own, but to mark the difference. When we first took that idea to health plans, they were going, are you crazy? Or we went to fitness centers because they're delivered through fitness centers. Right. And the fitness center says, older people don't want to work out. Literally, that's what they said. And of course, that's totally untrue.
That's right.
And most cities back then didn't have very good fitness centers, if any, and they were either where everybody in there is like monsters,
right,
or they were YMCAs where were overcrowded. And so today, though, there's at least in many cities, there's a Lifetime Fitness on every corner. They are many seniors in there working out.
Yep.
So we've seen progress. Also, there's never been as many diet plans, programs out there. What we have to do now is sort out the ones that really work. What we're missing is aligned incentives in healthcare. As long as you have healthcare providers that have to do more to make a better living or to build a bigger organization, we're going to have too much care because it's the first reaction. What if everybody was paid? What if we had an optimal health score? You and me. Every score was personalized to me, that if I did this, I could be there. And every healthcare provider was paid to improve that score. And if they didn't improve it, they don't get paid.
And I like it a lot.
Guess what?
Yeah.
We're about right there.
Yeah.
We're about right there. So now just think about how that would, if I woke up in the morning, I opened my app up and it said, here's where you could be in 2 years. You could be 10 pounds lighter. You could do this. You could drop your cholesterol to this. Here's where you are today. Here's what you need to do today. Totally different ball game.
Yep.
And if I have any, and by the way, Fred, Jim, and Mary did it this much this week. Where are you compared to Fred, Jim, and Mary?
Yeah, so I think the gamify thing is really, really important. So my wife does Pilates, and she does it with a bunch of people who are her age, and they encourage each other, and they keep going. And that social part of it, that interaction is hugely important.
And again, we have to always remember we're in an age of personalization. That's a good thing. Because not everybody's that way. Some people are loners. I'm an exercise loner.
Yeah.
I work out by myself. It's my time. I don't want anybody else around. Don't want to go to a gym. I have a home gym. So there'll always be those people, but it'll be a bell curve, and there'll be a lot more people who enjoy and need trainers, need to be inspired by other people.
Yeah.
And so if we build our systems for everybody, there's no reason why we can't do that. And I am encouraged that we're right on the edge of doing this. And we have some real drivers, we don't have enough people in healthcare. We got to figure out a better system. And primary care is terrible for the people and the practitioners, and it's terrible for the patients today because they're having to do too much, that you don't have personal time. All that can be changed. All of it can be changed. It's just the will to do it. And part of it, it's up until now, there's been so much confusing press about AI especially, but it's also true about robotics and everything else.
Right.
And a very common thing I find when I talk to executives and I say, why aren't you moving on it? I don't really understand. And they say, I just want to get retired, Manny. I'm 3 years away from retirement. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have to learn it. And wait, it's not that hard. But that's a lot of what's happening. And in fairness, too, they've got to go to a board and say, we're going to do this. They have to face their employees and say, we're going to do this. So you have to be convinced you're doing the right thing. I felt like just this last week, there was two seminal events. One was, Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan announced, we're going to build an entire new banking system company built around using technology to really provide better service at lower costs. Big commitment he's a guy that's an industry leader any way you figure it. And the other one was Amazon announcing that their business was going to double, but they're not going to double their workforce. All the new is coming from robotics, and they're going to keep the current workforce. And for two reasons. One is because they can't find enough people to grow that fast. Yep. So those are big steps. When companies that big, that are some of the best performing companies in the United States, say, we're going, now you'll start to see a lot of people, I think, start to say, okay, we got to go too. Yep. We got to go now. And that one of the big drivers I mentioned this morning is we no longer have this subsidy being provided by young people to take care of the elderly. We got to figure out a way to do it cheaper. Yeah. We got to do it.
Yeah. So one thing you talked about this morning I'm really intrigued by is the democratization of commerce. And as I think you described it, what it really means is we're going to cut out middleman, so the provider will go direct into consumer. So about that. My question would be, how would you do that in senior living?
So first of all, it's in the first book I wrote, and it's a widely understood concept. It's been around since the 70s. And what it means is taking something that's available to a few, making it available to many, and ultimately everyone. So the goal here would be to make senior living available to everybody at the quality we're looking for. Now, how do you do it? Well, one is you look for as many services as you can possibly do that can be done at a significantly lower cost and made available to everyone. That's number one. So AI alter egos are one to assume a lot of the tasks of caregiving, because, for example, the one that we've built, it can see you, and it can diagnose things wrong with you because it sees you every day and it's tracking it. Fascinating. And we've got scientists working with products that are going to immediately available now, but it can see you. So it could be the person's daughter every morning having a call with mom, talking to mom, but also if she sees something wrong, being able to alert the real daughter and basically doing a wellness check. How'd you sleep, Mom? Oh, good. There's a little something, your eyes twitching a little bit. That wasn't there yesterday. Anything going on? You see what I'm doing? That is powerful. And those applied to the industry, and then really rethinking what do we need to do in the way of service that we can scale this and expand it to people. Remember, he brought it up last night. That really trying to say, how do we go to the next lower income level?
Right. Well, and again, I think that he wasn't originally